Most of the time, when we think about prisons, we picture dank, gloomy facilities used to house violent offenders. However, regular prison cells are insufficient for some of the most cruel criminals. For that reason, inhumane, specialized cells have been developed especially for people who have committed horrific crimes. Join us today as we examine the renowned cells and contentious techniques used to hold serial killers who have been considered too dangerous to never walk free again. Welcome to True Crime. Let's get started. Number 9. ADX Florence. Located in Florence, Colorado, the high-security federal prison is also referred to as the Alcatraz of the Rockies. Some of the most dangerous prisoners in the country, including well-known serial killers and prominent offenders, reside there. ADX Florence is well known for its strict design, which keeps prisoners from interacting with one another or the outside world. The windows in the cells are specifically designed to prevent inmates from determining their exact location within the complex. With its small size of 4 inches by 4 feet, they only provide a glimpse of the roof and sky, making escape planning practically impossible. Prisoners are allowed to work out in a concrete pit that looks like an abandoned swimming pool, which makes it even more difficult to figure out where they are. The pit is so small that it can only take 10 steps in a straight line or 31 steps in a circle. A prisoner may be in their cell for up to 23 hours every day. With limited access to basic requirements such as food and water, the prison is supposed to be very secure, with several surveillance cameras, motion detectors, and other high-tech security measures in place to deter escape attempts. Visitors are not permitted to touch the prisoners or carry any objects into the facility, and the inmates are subject to extensive security inspections and searches. Serial killers and other serious criminals at ADX Florence are treated brutally. Restrictive policies also include sensory deprivation, in which offenders are denied access to natural light, fresh air, and human interaction, resulting in serious mental health difficulties. Many have claimed that ADX Florence violates fundamental human rights, and the facility's circumstances have drawn a great deal of debate and criticism. The severe conditions and treatment at ADX Florence have led to a high percentage of mental illness, suicide attempts, and other psychological issues among the inmates. The brutal techniques used on serial killers here vary from prolonged solitary confinement, restricted communication, and a lack of access to medical treatment, to severe living circumstances, interrogation and mind games, and restrictive policies. Even though the majority of them lost their lives as an outcome of these activities and suffered from serious mental health issues like depression and anxiety, the conditions still exist today. Number 8. San Quentin State Prison, USA. San Quentin State Prison is the next stop on our list. It is well known for having housed some of the most notorious serial killers, including Ted Bundy, Charles Manson, Richard Ramirez, and others. With a history spanning more than 150 years, it is one of the oldest prisons in the nation and is situated in California. San Quentin's jail cells are notorious for their tight and cruel layout, with prisoners packed in like sardines. The cells are small, measuring 4.5 by 9.5 feet, so there's not much space for personal items or even walking around. The sense of imprisonment, lack of exercise, little family interaction, and lack of stimulation all affect prisoners. They also have little time for leisure activities or outdoor recreation due to strict daily routines. The way serial killers are treated in San Quentin is a contentious topic. While some contend that they are treated better than regular prisoners, others think their living conditions are worse. Prisoners on death row are housed in special housing units, where they may spend up to 23 hours a day alone in their cells. The cells are made of solid steel and have a door with a small slot for food delivery. The slots are too small for the inmates to look through, and they are only permitted out of their cells for 1 hour of exercise per day, in a small concrete yard designed to prevent them from interacting with other inmates or workers. Due to the extreme psychological distress that results from this isolation, several prisoners have reported having mental health issues. One of the most notorious cases involving San Quentin and serial killers is that of Charles Manson. Even with recent efforts to improve conditions, San Quentin is still a famously dangerous and crowded facility. Due to a high crime rate and a lack of resources, prisoners are kept in cruel conditions that seriously impact their mental health. Number 7. Rikers Island Prison. Rikers Island Prison, a complex of 10 jails, has long been recognized for its harsh circumstances, violent climate, and terrible treatment of inmates. With a history of abuse and corruption, Rikers Island is considered to represent the evil side of the American justice system. The cells are small, crowded, unclean, and poorly ventilated, with little heating and cooling. Inmates frequently report insect infestations, such as rats and cockroaches, as well as mold difficulties. Inmates are frequently forced to deal with severe temperatures without access to natural light or fresh air. Serial killers are frequently kept in the highest security facilities, where they are detained in isolation for extended periods of time. These apartments have especially harsh living circumstances. These institutions' inmates frequently experience mental health issues as a result of their seclusion and lack of stimulation. Apart from the poor living conditions seen within the cells, Rikers Island has faced criticism for the way it handles its prisoners. Many incidents of abuse and brutality by correctional officers have been reported, including cases of excessive force and ignoring basic medical needs. According to a 2019 New York Times article, Rikers Island should be completely closed due to its awful living conditions. According to the research, it's a place where violence is widespread and unrestricted. The location has improved somewhat in recent years, but the circumstances are still far from ideal. Even now, Rikers Island remains one of the most cruel prisons in the country due to its high rate of violence, poor medical care, and mistreatment of inmates. Number 6. La Santé Prison, France. La Santé Prison, which is situated in the center of Paris, France, has come to represent the French criminal justice system. However, a violent, corrupt, and hopeless reality lies beneath its forbidding facades. Constructed in the 1800s, the correctional facility boasts a dark past, having served as a home to some of the most dangerous offenders in France. It has developed a reputation over time for being a cruel and terrible place where inmates endure horrendous conditions and abuse. Up to 3 prisoners can sometimes be seen packed into one of La Santé Prison's tiny, overcrowded cells, and it is intended to house the most aggressive and dangerous offenders. With a size of only 2 meters by 1.5 meters, the cells in the QHS are even smaller than those in the general population. The only source of light in the cells is a low-light bulb because there is no natural light there. Inmates are confined to their cells for 23 hours every day, with only 1 hour for exercise in a small outdoor yard. They are only permitted 1 hour of family visits every month and are not allowed to have access to newspapers, radio, or television. Many known criminals like Carlos the Jackal, the notorious terrorist who carried out a string of attacks in the 1970s and 1980s, have been detained at La Santé in horrible conditions. Other notable detainees include Jacques Mezrine, a known French criminal, and the emir of the GIA, a terrorist organization that carried out a series of bombings in France throughout the 1990s. The French government has made efforts in the past few years to lessen solitary confinement in prisons and to enhance the circumstances at La Santé. However, the facility remains harsh and terrifying, with a dark past and a reputation for being one of the most brutal correctional facilities in the world. La Santé serves as a reminder of the brutal realities of prison, where even the most fundamental human rights are ignored. Next up, number 5. Tadmor Prison, Syria. The Tadmor Prison, notorious for its cruel treatment of its prisoners, is located in the middle of a large desert in the heart of Syria. Constructed in 1934 as a military barracks, Tadmor was transformed into a prison throughout the 1960s and came to represent the brutality of the Syrian government. The prison was notorious for its horrific circumstances, widespread violations of human rights, and torture. An unsuccessful escape attempt by a group of prisoners in 1980 prompted a crackdown by the prison administration. The Syrian army then carried out a massacre that resulted in the deaths of almost 500 detainees. The Tadmor cells are overcrowded, dark, and dirty. Because there was little cozy and ventilation, prisoners had to suffer through extremely cold weather. Rats and other vermin were swarming the cells, and the lack of proper medical attention for the prisoners allowed sickness to grow. At Tadmor, serial killers received especially brutal treatment. Tortures included electric shocks, severe beatings. The Syrian government eventually abandoned the jail after rebel groups attacked it in 2011 during the Syrian civil war. It is now a ruin and a vivid reminder of the horrors that took place within its walls. Human rights organizations welcomed the closing of the reformatory because it was known as one of the cruelest and most severe facilities in the world. Tadmor Prison still has a very dark and brutal history. Even though the building is currently abandoned, the terrible events that took place there are still strongly remembered. Number 4. Carandiru Penitentiary, Brazil. One of Latin America's biggest prison systems was built in 1956. This prison was able to house more than 8,000 inmates and was situated in São Paulo, Brazil. On the other hand, the prison was notorious for its odd chambers, called the fridge. These were tiny, windowless chambers used as punishment cells where prisoners were kept in freezing temperatures. Serial killers were given extremely harsh treatment when detained. Convicts were exposed to physical and psychological abuse by both jail staff and other convicts. The prison was also known for its violent past, with frequent riots and arguments between opposing gangs. When a riot broke out in the prison in 1992, it became one of the most well-known events in its history. 111 prisoners died throughout the 3 days of the conflict. Many of them were shot and killed by police officers who had been sent to restore order. Carandiru's prison cells were small and tight, measuring only 2.5 by 2.5 meters, and often housing many offenders. Especially the ones who are considered serial killers faced a humiliating and deadly atmosphere due to the crowded, small cells and the severe physical and psychological punishments, such as the infamous fridge cells. The facility is closed, but the marks of torture still remain visible on the fabric of history. Number 3. Portsmouth Naval Prison, Maine. The Portsmouth Naval Prison was a maximum security prison designed to detain military personnel who had broken the uniform code of military justice. It was situated on the grounds of the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard in Kittery, Maine. The reformatory, which was in operation from 1908 to 1974, was well known for its severe living standards and severe disciplinary rules. Originally constructed in 1908 as a sailor detention center, it gradually evolved into a maximum security military prison. Portsmouth Naval's cells were narrow and confined, with minimal space for movement. Convicts were provided only the necessities. The grill's purpose was to prevent the inmates' efforts at escape by using wire mesh and steel bars. In addition to the horrible conditions in the cells, the guards at Portsmouth Naval also treated the inmates harshly and cruelly. Physical abuse, such as beatings and waterboarding, was not unusual. The jail was open until 1974, when it was shut down because of cruel conditions. Today, the site of Portsmouth Naval Prison has been redeveloped into a luxury hotel and conference center. But the memories of the prison's terrible past and infamous inmates never really go away, reminding us of this military prison's dark history. Moving on. Number 2. El Hongo Prison, Mexico. Originally constructed in the 1950s as a drug rehabilitation facility, El Hongo Prison is situated in the Mexican state of Baja California. However, throughout time, it evolved into a maximum security prison that serves some of Mexico's most aggressive and deadly offenders. Serial killers are kept apart from other inmates in separate areas of the prison. Their special cells, known as dog pound, are small, cramped spaces that are often used to punish or isolate inmates. Additionally, offenders who pose a threat to other prisoners or prison officials, and prisoners are frequently refused access to basic hygiene amenities. The goal of these cells is to break the spirits of the most disruptive and dangerous convicts, and they are frequently employed as a punishment for those who have committed violent crimes or presented a threat to others in jail. Prisoners housed at the dog pound and black rooms fight on a daily basis just to survive, with little chance of rehabilitation or release. The conditions of the place are savage, and no one has been able to do anything about it yet. Last but not least, number 1. Gitarama Prison, Rwanda. The infamous Gitarama Prison is located in the center of Rwanda. Originally designed to house 400 prisoners, Gitarama housed nearly 7,000 during the Holocaust. The conditions for the prisoners were terrible, and they were forced to sleep on the floors due to the severe overcrowding. Prisoners who have committed specific crimes are housed in separate sections of the prison. The White House and the Black Zone were two distinct sections of Gitarama Prison reserved for serial killers. The Black Zone and the White House were two divisions of Gitarama Prison that were distinguished by their harsh conditions. The Black Zone was a terrifying environment for many prisoners. Inside Gitarama, the living conditions were beyond inhumane. Inmates were kept in tiny rooms with minimal access to food or water, and prison guards were notorious for assaulting the prisoners physically and even sexually. A number of detainees died as a result of the confluence of cholera and dysentery that spread due to overcrowding, malnutrition, and terrible living conditions. Finally, despite the terrible circumstances, some detainees escaped their time in these prisons. Many of these survivors now share their stories publicly, bringing attention to the horrors and the significance of protecting human rights. So these prisons serve as a reminder of the horrors that can occur when basic human rights are ignored and violated. Our thoughts and prayers go out to those involved. We hope you enjoyed our true crime overview of the inhumane prison units only for serial killers. Be sure to be a true crime subscriber and hit the bell icon to never miss another true crime video. Leave a comment and a like to show your support. Until next time, stay safe, and if you have a true crime story you would love to see, please be sure to leave in the comments below. We look forward to seeing you in our next video.